Hi, everyone. Welcome back to UCCA's Alumni Speaker Series. So this is our third series in this podcast, and our topic for these next few episodes is going to be self-development. So in our previous two topics, we focused on what individuals can do during university to pursue a path in consulting, including some specific courses that have been beneficial. But now we're going to shift our focus a little bit to the individuals who've left the academic environment and found themselves jumping into their career. So kind of looking at how they've continued to pursue their interests now that they're no longer in that school environment where you do have a lot of extracurriculars and just so many opportunities available to get involved. So seeing how they've adjusted to their new work schedule and their new fast-paced environment, and in what ways they can continue to kind of shape their identity and sense of self once they've left university and entered the workplace. So it's a pretty big topic to tackle, but luckily I'm joined today by Ali. So thank you so much for being here. Would you like to start off by introducing yourself? Maybe tell us a bit about your major and what your role was with UCCA, or HCC as you knew it originally.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Stephanie. I'm Ali. I'm a consultant at Deloitte Canada. I work out of their customer strategy and applied design practice. I studied business technology management at U of C, where I also was on the varsity swim team for that duration. And then with regards to HCC, I actually started, or UCCA, I actually started the club alongside Daniel Pham and Joseph Wright. I think 2016 was at the time. There was like a serious economic downturn where just students had trouble finding jobs, and we just saw like an opportunity to like create something that gives students that chance or the opportunity to just get work experience and highlights on their resume. So thankfully, it turned out a great success. It's still a thing, which is great. I think we've had tremendous leaders that have come through the club, and yeah, I think it's kind of nice seeing how it's going.
Awesome. Yeah, it's crazy to hear that you founded it when it's been such a staple for the past couple of years, and it's been such a big part even of Haskayne, and I know we're hoping to grow to the rest of the university, but it's great to hear that. So you kind of answered a bit of my next question, which was asking on what sort of extracurriculars you did during university apart from UCCA. So if you could tell us more about your experience swimming and how you got involved with that, or any other extracurriculars.
Yeah, no, I swam competitively all through, like, since I was I think like 10 or 11, and then it's made sense to compete through university. And then the challenge obviously was, like any student athlete, is balancing the workload with your sports schedule, which I think for most people you tend to figure that out fairly early on. I think for most like athletes, it's kind of getting that work-life balance is very crucial, because if school takes over, your performance can be affected, vice versa. But luckily, I think we had just a great environment where everyone was very kind of in tune with the work that needed to be done, or performance in the pool. I had a great support system with the teams, like Daniel Pham and Joseph Wright, like I mentioned. They were both in business, and we all kind of just helped each other through school or during competitions. And I think it was overall a very supportive environment, just helping succeed. And then with HCC was just a really great way to just become more involved in school. This was when we had stopped swimming after the 2016 Olympic trials, and we had this newfound like time on our hands, and we decided to start just kind of doing some extracurriculars around university. And this was just an easy way to really provide real value to students. When we came up with this idea, we reached out to one of our professors at the time, Shiraz Khan, and he thought it was a fantastic idea, and he was our champion. He was our faculty advisor the entire time we were going through that process. It was definitely an uphill battle getting it started. There was a lot of considerations, and we had no experience in like the club space, but it was a fun experience, just kind of starting something from scratch for students to really get something out of your university career.
Yeah, awesome. It must be great to see it grow as well afterwards, and how it's changed over the years. Did you find, you mentioned that swimming kind of helped you find that work-life balance. Do you think that helped you out once you graduated as well? Do you think you kind of had built up those skills and it helped kind of put you ahead?
Definitely. I think like from a time commitment point of view, like with swimming, you're you're swimming up to like 30 hours a week training. So naturally, it's almost like a part-time job. And it definitely did help transition when I joined consulting, because work-life balance is a huge deal, where if you don't manage it properly, you can get burnt out big time, or it can affect you negatively. So there are certain learnings that you pick up in athletics that I think teach you about how to balance certain considerations from when it comes to extracurriculars or hobbies or pursuing interests, while also kind of maintaining that, I guess, like work hard, play hard lifestyle. So yeah, I think swimming definitely helped, but most of us have been doing it since we're very young, so it does kind of come as second nature. So, but definitely helped big time in consulting.
Awesome, that's great to hear. And currently, are you able to kind of pursue any of those things that you did in university? Are you still able to swim, or have you developed any other hobbies or pastimes?
So after swimming, I think, yeah, I kind of got sick of swimming after doing it for so long. Myself and my friends, we decided to pick up a new sport. So we all got into skiing, and now I think skiing is like the premier sport we're really into. It's just a great way to just stay fit and really be out in the mountains. I think it's just like a really great time to spend outdoors. I'd say most of my like newfound time and energy goes towards that in the wintertime. But during the work week, I try to keep a pretty strict balance of kind of work and personal life, where if it's like any engagement, I try to set boundaries with my managers or my leaders to set expectations around, hey, okay, after like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., this is kind of like my own time where I have my own time. I like to read, I like to cook, and I take that very seriously. I find if I ever compromise on my hobbies or interests, then I find my performance at work actually takes a dip. So I think it's just as important to have a very strong, well-balanced life outside of work that can allow me to use my time to invest in, just really grow and nurture myself. So yeah, there's like lots. It's hard to like really pinpoint, but I think like reading is something during COVID. I think most people have really gotten into. I live really close to Bonus Library. I think on the weekends is where I like to spend most of my time. Yeah, and me and my roommate were really into cooking, so we'll make big extravagant meals several times a week. We'll have people over for dinner. I think dinner parties is, I guess, like the cool thing to do nowadays. Yeah, I think there's so much to do, and there's never enough time for it. But it's nice to fill up the schedule, right?
Yeah, totally. It's awesome to hear that you're able to kind of set those boundaries and take time to do all those things that you're interested in. Do you feel that since things went online, it's kind of harder to have those boundaries and have that switch off at 6 p.m. or kind of, the work week's kind of changed and it looks a bit different and people's expectations have changed?
Yeah, beginning of COVID was definitely a challenge where there was blurred lines between work and life. It was a lot easier to work into the late hours of night because you're just very close to your workstation. There wasn't as much of a disconnect between work and life. I think everyone struggled through it during the beginning of COVID, but after a couple months, things start to like balance out. Once people realize, okay, this is actually like a long-term thing, and it wasn't quite a sustainable lifestyle to work so close to essentially where you live. That's kind of when you have to realize, okay, we have to actually set some boundaries. And I think it comes with kind of communication, having some dialogue with your leaders around, okay, I do want to invest in this part of my life that is not work. And part of that is disconnecting after a certain hour. And I think everyone that I've talked to has respected that. It's a very normal thing to ask. I think people are aware that people have lives outside of work. So right now it's not as much an issue, but I think beginning of COVID was a bit of a challenge. I think for me personally, I do like the hybrid model that Deloitte offers, where we're allowed to go into the office anytime we want, but we're also allowed to work from home anytime we want. So I do very much miss my like work friends due to COVID. So we'll kind of plan to go into the office a couple times a week, just like catch up, see each other, work from there. It's also a nice kind of way to create a separation between work and life again. So Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but I think everyone's kind of fairly gotten used to it at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience for everybody. But it's good to hear that you have the option to go in and kind of get that social interaction when you need it, because I think definitely everyone's going a bit crazy at this point. On the flip side, do you think that COVID's allowed you to maybe take up any new hobbies, or have you been able to kind of address all that time that you suddenly have kind of just by yourself anymore? Or have you been able to, maybe, you mentioned reading, have you picked up any other new skills or anything like that?
So one of the things I actually kind of missed about university is and I only learned this towards like the end of my university career, where I actually really missed the learning aspect of school. Where I remember there's this one course, my capstone, probably I think Sigma 591 is what it's called. And I remember just distinctly remembering like I really enjoyed that class, especially like learning the material. I thought it was very, very interesting, and like that learning aspect, I think I kind of missed from school. So during COVID, I started doing this thing where like every month I would just pick a topic to study almost for myself and just kind of get really into like, and I would just get like obsessively deep about this certain topic for like the entire month, where I would actually like I would like research it, I would actually write about it, I would think about it, I'd start conversation with friends about it, I'd start some dialogue, like things all around from like Russian history or like certain like world issues that I care very much about. I'll like get really into. And I'll just like study, and I feel like learning is very appealing. I just like talking to other people about it too. So COVID has definitely offered that. And excuse me, sorry. So excuse me, sorry. So yeah, just like learning has been awesome, and just reading, and yeah, I feel like that's what I really got into during COVID, is just like finding topics and getting really into them, and just creating some dialogue.
That sounds like a very productive habit and hobby. I'm sure that as students, we kind of take that for granted, being able to learn and being exposed to so many different opportunities in that way. I guess we kind of forget that, we kind of lose that once we graduate, and you kind of have to work to pursue that and learn more.
I think like learning too is like one of the things I like really learned at university is how to learn, and I think I apply that at my job daily, where every single day, every single project, or every topic you come across, it's always uncharted territory. It's very new to you, so you have no choice but to learn very quickly. And I find just learning new things on a like weekly or daily basis just helps keep that part of the mind fairly active, so that when you are forced to learn something new, it's not much of a challenge to pick it up. So I think learning is a blessing. It's something I quite enjoy.
Yeah, I'm sure those are skills that you're going to use for the rest of your life, and no matter what area you end up, and being able to pick something up quickly is definitely a skill worth keeping. Apart from learning, we do have a lot of opportunities to get involved with extracurriculars and all sorts of things on campus that I'm sure we also take for granted. Do you find that Deloitte offers any opportunities for you to get involved outside of your regular scope of work? Are there any sort of maybe volunteer opportunities or opportunities for self-growth?
No, we have tons of opportunities. Like there's the way it's known at Deloitte is you have your own project type work, but then you always have what's called practice development outside of your project stuff, where it's really anything that you can pursue. And this is really a chance for you to just find what interests you and just getting deep into that area. Like for instance, one of the areas I'm very interested in is like product management or just product design. And Deloitte actually has a group that is almost like a community that lets people who are interested in this topic to get involved, like researching tools that our practitioners can use, or the new and latest product tool that can help a certain project succeed. So, and like anything you're interested in, it exists within the firm. If it doesn't, then you have the opportunities and the means to like start it from scratch. So there's tons and tons of opportunities, and there is a balance though, where obviously project stuff comes first. And in the remaining hours of the week, if there is time, then I'll kind of follow up with my practice development stuff. But there's loads, the sky is the limit, honestly, with like extracurriculars within Deloitte. There's tons of stuff happening. It just really matters about like your time commitment, and like really what interests you. So yeah, there's several topics within Deloitte that I am pretty involved in, and they don't really feel like work. They're just things that I'm particularly interested in, and I don't mind using them as a time sink.
Awesome. And was that something that you knew about Deloitte going into this position, or did it influence maybe your choices coming out of university?
No, I wasn't too aware of like this aspect of Deloitte. Deloitte has a very deep like knowledge exchange and like learning and development like system. So they care big time around our practitioners always learning new skills and just really staying interested in certain topics. So I think it's a tremendous thing to have that I think most companies have. Obviously, learning and development, I think it's a very important part that, at least for me, I care very much about. And I think it's definitely one of the best like parts about the job for sure.
Yeah, I feel like coming out of university, especially, you don't really know a lot about the environment, and you think it's work is just work, and you have no idea about all of those other opportunities that you have. But it's amazing to hear that, you know, Deloitte takes such an interest in helping you get that experience, and it sounds like you're able to connect with a lot of people who feel exactly the same way as you do, and seek out that learning.
I think, like, as cheesy as it sounds, I think the best way to describe like all the big consulting firms would be like it's almost like a choose your own adventure type of work, where like you can really pick and choose and pursue the topics and interests that you're passionate about, right? So it is really up to you to carve out that entire path. So yeah, there's loads and loads of opportunity.
Awesome. Kind of shifting focuses a little bit. You did mention that you've been reading a lot more recently during COVID. And I'm wondering if there's any book suggestions you have for us, or any other maybe media like podcasts, audiobooks, anything like that.
Actually, there's this podcast I just started listening to recently that I thought was really, really good. I just want to find it before I butcher it. Yeah, okay, it's called 10% Happier with Dan Harris. I think this one is probably one of the better. I'm not actually crazy into podcasts, but this is one that has really got me hooked. They have one episode around like wisdom in the old age, and like I thought it actually like applies a lot into like a consultant or just work in general, where I think in any kind of job, there's always certain more senior people that are always kind of offering advice and guidance towards like the younger folk. And I think this podcast just touches a bit more about how to take that, but in like a light and grand kind of scheme of life, how the experiences that we learn as we grow make us happier, essentially. So that podcast is awesome. In terms of books, I'm part of 2 book clubs, and my mind is drawing a blank right now. I don't know. There's a book called Prisoners of Geography, which I'm obsessed with, like geopolitics or even like geography at a global scale. And this book just has, I think, 10 key regions that just, and it dives into like the geopolitical strategies of each of these regions, which I think is very, very interesting. Like answer certain questions like why Ukraine or China have certain strategies that they adopt or implement, and the reasons behind them. I think that's just like very interesting and eye-opening. I think part of consulting too is being aware of what's happening in the world and being up to date on issues, trends, news. So it's a topic, like I think geography in general is something I'm very interested in. And if you're interested in politics or geography, especially Prisoners of Geography is the best book. I would definitely recommend.
Awesome, thanks. I have heard of 10% Happier. I've heard a lot of good things about that podcast, so I definitely want to check that one out. But I haven't heard of the book before, so that's a great suggestion. I think generally there's so many resources out there, like even informally, like podcasts, books that can help you develop your career in consulting, even if it doesn't seem like it directly would impact it. Like having that knowledge about world politics and geography would just be so invaluable.
There's actually one book that one of a very influential manager I have at Deloitte, she suggested this book called Measure What Matters. And it's a goal setting book that I found very, very interesting. It talks about the story of how like Intel in like the 70s and 80s became like such a strong corporation when it came to like setting OKRs, or they were the gold standard when it came to like strategic goal setting. And I think that book works at work and at personal life. Like I think applying goals and achieving them and setting them, I think the book talks a lot about that, and I find it very impactful. I've applied it at work and in my personal life. I think it's super, super helpful, and I wish I explored it like sooner. So it's called Measure What Matters. I would definitely recommend that too.
Awesome. We'll definitely have to check that one out as well. So I guess kind of just to close things off, I'm wondering if there's anything that you've learned now that you've graduated and been in the field for a while that you wish you'd learned before graduating. So a skill or some kind of knowledge that you'd like to pass on.
I think one thing I wish I learned during school early on, I didn't learn this until I think the end of my third year when we were starting the club, but I think one thing I wish I learned early on was the value of networking. I think once we started the club and we started kind of going to these events and becoming very involved in the community, that's when we realized the impact and like the actual importance that network has. And I feel like any student, if they can start that as early as possible, it would make a huge, huge difference. And like the thing about network is it just grows with you over time. It's not like you just meet a person once and you'll never see them again. It's a relationship that you nurture and grow throughout your career. And oftentimes these people will like have your back. They'll be able to provide advice, guidance, mentorship. And like one big piece of advice I would give to students that I didn't do until towards the end of my university career is lean on your professors. Like people tend to forget that the reason professors are professors is because they are literally experts in their field, and we students have like total access to them. So I think if you can lean on your professors, I think that is such a valuable resource. That professor I mentioned earlier, Shiraz Khan, he was so instrumental in really helping so many students kind of carve out like a career path after school. So finding a professor that you trust, that you like, and really just like ask them questions, ask them, hey, what is life on the other side, right? So yeah, definitely on your professors and try to nurture that network.
Yeah, those are two pieces of knowledge that I'm definitely just now kind of understanding at the end of my degree for sure. I know in the first 2 years, I was kind of scared of networking and speaking to professors, but it's definitely something that you just have to really take that leap and just go for it, because there's really nothing to be afraid of, and it really is so beneficial.
Yeah, for like a lot of students, like especially like myself included, like starting off networking is very intimidating. It is so scary because you're not always sure what to say, and you're always worried that you're going to say something wrong or embarrassing, and that is so normal. And I feel like, at least for me, I think anyone can actually attest to this, is like networking is very much like a skill. It's a muscle that you develop over time. You just have to keep going and going. I remember like the first networking event I ever went to, like I don't think I spoke to anyone, but then I just went to more. I just kept showing up to more and more events, and it just felt more and more natural to just like speak up, talk to people. Like introducing yourself becomes very, very easy, and very soon enough you actually get very interested in learning about other people. So it is definitely a muscle or like a skill that you can learn. And like for first, second, third year students, like just go, just talk to people. I think it is so valuable, because after university and consulting or even just any job, like this is basically networking on a daily basis. So the earlier you can work on the skill, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely something to start as soon as possible. And I wish I'd had that advice a little bit sooner as well. So hopefully this helps somebody out.
Yeah, the best time to start is now. That's what they say.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here to talk to us today, Ali, and kind of giving us an insight into what your experience has been. I think you were probably the perfect person to kick off this topic with. It sounds like you kind of have everything figured out in terms of your hobbies and balancing that with your life. your work-life balance and still kind of pursuing all of those things that interest you. You've definitely set a pretty high bar, I would say.
Oh, wow, that's too kind. Thank you, Stephanie. No, you guys have been doing fantastic work at UCCA. Like, I think you guys are offering real value to students to really capitalize on your university career. So honestly, huge kudos to you guys. You guys are doing a great job.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking your time out of your busy day and helping us kind of understand a little bit more about how we can continue growing once we've graduated and that it doesn't really stop even once you've left university.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.